Tyson exiting stage left, boxing's heavyweight division is coming up a little light in the contender category. As Charlie Steiner reports, Evander Holyfield is racing for the 3 R's, Riddick, Ruddick, and the ridiculous.
With Mike Tyson now effectively out of the picture, Evander Holyfield's grip on the heavyweight championship appears more secure than ever. ESPN has learned that as early as this coming week, Holyfield will announce he'll be fighting 42-year-old Larry Holmes in late May or early June. It's going to take place at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. Holyfield is expected to make about $20 million, Holmes about $7 million.
Evander Holyfield and his brain trust is not avoiding anybody, but I think what they're trying to do is make the most money possible in the least amount of time with the least risk, which if you look at it in the bottom line is what a manager is supposed to be, most money, least risk.
Evander Holyfield is very, very secure in his position as the heavyweight champion of the world. He hasn't ducked anyone. He's tried to fight the best. He's signed to fight Mike Tyson twice. We'll just go on. I mean, it's not his fault.
Do his job as Evander's promoter is to look for a situation, the highest reward, the lowest risk.
The Holmes-Holyfield fight will be an interesting scenario because the things that Larry Holmes was able to do to Ray Mercer to win that bout are all things he probably wouldn't be able to do against Evander Holyfield. He will not be able to sucker Evander Holyfield into things. He will not be able to prevent Evander Holyfield from throwing the punches he wants. But the one thing that Larry Holmes knows is that Evander Holyfield is not a huge puncher.
Holyfield, now a keen observer of the business side of boxing, knows that a Holmes fight can generate more money than, say, a fight against Riddick Bowe.
When Tyson and myself came about, we was on ABC, CBS, NBC, free network, and so people got an opportunity to see us a lot more than up-and-coming fighters, and a lot of, and the boxing sense, a lot of young fighters didn't get the exposure. Now the older fighters that people have seen coming back, and people say, well, we'd rather see a name fighter like a George Foreman, a Larry Holmes.
So where does that leave the rest of the pack? The Riddick Bowes, the Razor Ruddicks, the Michael Moores, the Lennox Lewises, and even the Tommy Morrisons.
The heavyweight division, now that Mike Tyson has been excerpted from its ranks, is sort of like Evander Holyfield and the 7 Dwarfs.
The 7 Dwarfs include Big George Foreman, who is back in the ring in April against Alex Stewart. The 43-year-old Foreman, who says he's in his last year in the ring, may end up fighting Tommy the Duke Morrison sometime during the late summer if all goes according to promoter Bob Arum's master plan. Meanwhile, where does that leave Riddick and Ruddick and Lewis and Moore?
They need to fight each other because it's obvious, maybe it's got to be patently obvious to them by now. Unless they do that, they're not going to make any money against anybody.
So while Mike Tyson's considerable aura takes a leave of absence from the heavyweight division, Evander and the 7 Dwarfs will have no trouble making ends meet. I'm Charlie Steiner, ESPN.
Boy, how sad is the division when Larry Holmes has all of a sudden become the marquee guy to go in there against Evander Holyfield. Also, you've got to feel sorry for a guy like Evander who did everything right. He's not in trouble. You never hear any kind of problems with him. He can't get the big payday anymore because Tyson's headed to jail.
We may never see that $100 million fight. The pay-per-view industry, Tyson really, Foreman to an extent, but Tyson, best thing to happen in that industry, and right now he is out of the picture and probably forever, pending, of course, his appeal.
I'm never going to use her name because they said don't, and I'm never going to do it. She would not be seen as this God-fearing, pristine lady. She would be seen in a different light.
We'll get to the different light in a moment. That was more of an answer than I anticipated.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's allowed. And either way, Tony, your feelings.
Well, just to address a couple of things that Ralph said, I would disagree, and we'll be disagreeing, I'm sure, throughout this whole segment. I don't think that if the reverse were true with William Kennedy Smith and Mike Tyson, that the verdicts, would change that much. I think in the Mike Tyson case, different from William Kennedy Smith, different from Clarence Thomas, different from Isaiah Leggett, a case Ralph is familiar with in the Washington, D.C. area, of an elected official being accused of sexual harassment. That the victim in the Mike Tyson case was an 18-year-old girl, and I think you cannot discount that with a jury. The other women involved in this variety of cases were 30 and 35 and 40 years old. I think that had a lot to do with it.
Bill Rhoden.
See, I agree. She says that there's a sickness, and it's true. There's been a lot of debate in the last 3 weeks about did he do it, did she do it? And one of the things that disturbs me, now we've got the Baptist ministers passing a thing, there is a sickness, and the sickness, and nobody really wants to talk about it, is this whole notion of black male-female relationships. There's a black male sexism. There's a very basic issue about respect, respecting your women, respecting black women, and that to me is an undebatable principle. In terms of the law, yeah, I mean, the Prison Project just came out with a study last week and said the United States is the greatest jailer of black males in the world, even greater than South Africa. So yes, before we have discussion, yes, it is a racist judicial system, but I think that one of the things that hopefully this dialogue will create among particularly black males and black females is that there's an issue of sexism, there's an issue of disrespect. And it doesn't matter whether it's in Indianapolis or whether it's in Florida. And I think you could debate around the issue, but that to me is one of the more important points about all this.
Now, that's an issue, obviously, which is very hard for someone who is white to bring up, because one thing you don't sense it as well, don't understand it as well as you. Do you find Bill's point valid, or?
Oh well, certainly, but that's not the issue that I'm trying to confront. The issue I'm trying to confront is the way people are portrayed in the media. And I'm a creature of the media myself. I understand how it works. Mike Tyson is seen and was portrayed. He was convicted when he walked into the courtroom. Various media organizations, we know he did it. We know he's this bestial. And people are even talking about his defense team. And Tony's going to have something to say about that, about how they blew it. But see, Clarence Darrow and Oliver Wendell Holmes wouldn't have been able to get Tyson off from this particular charge. Tyson is seen as a beast. Why?
Oh, yes,
Jose Torres says, well, Mike told me he hit Robin Givens with the best punch he ever threw. Apparently, he did not hit her hard enough to knock her off the cover of Life magazine or out of the stores on Rodeo Drive. I mean, I never saw her marked. William Kennedy Smith is seen as a medical student. Now, there are 3 women in Washington, D.C., white women, who say, yeah, the guy knocked me over in the bushes and did the same thing to me. Now, they were barred from testifying in the Florida trial. Now, who is the sick person here? Mike Tyson for running around feeling on some behinds, which everybody in Italy would have to be put in jail if that was the case. Or somebody who there's witnesses that say, I was attacked.
Go back to the defense thing for a second. Why would the defense, if I'm sitting on a jury and the defense presents Mike Tyson as this sexual leering monster and says, let the shopper beware, if you go near him, it's your fault, isn't it very easy for me on the jury to say, well, if he can be that, of course he could have raped this woman? I mean, why would they even come up with a defense like this? That's not the media, Ralph. That was his lawyers.
Well, I think they were responding. See, that was already there. That was immutable. His image was immutable. How are we going to change his image in a 2-week trial when it's been built up over 5 years?
I don't think he was convicted in the past. I honestly thought that he, like the other people involved, would be acquitted in this case.
He indeed may have been guilty. You know, and that's a tough one. He was found guilty, so he's guilty. But my point is, these 5 Washington Capitals hockey players, 5-on-1, these 3 St. John students, 3-on-1, William Kennedy Smith 1-on-1, and they walk. They walk, Tony, and that's
the recent history of the country.
That gets into the, there are 2 issues
and those were black women, Bill.
Right.
So white men have to respect black women as well as black men. I don't want to say, well, I'll go to jail. You'll go to jail if you're a black man and you rape a white woman. But if you're a white man and you rape a white woman, as always.
Well, the Capitals case was not a white woman, and it was not brought.
Right.
They didn't have enough to indict, and a lot of people are saying that William Kennedy Smith, as it turns out, there was not even enough truly to indict. They did not have a strong case in that situation.
There's one thing I just want to, when you talk about this perception, this image of Tyson, the reason behind it, why does he have that image? Why, is it because he's black? Is it because he's a fighter? Or is it because he's Mike Tyson?
All those things. I mean, I'm not here to say Mike Tyson is, the most well-adjusted person on earth, because he certainly isn't. But how did he become the world's heavyweight champion? By being dangerous. I don't know.
But he promoted this image himself.
He did, because that's what people wanted. Give it to us. Give it to us. And he gave it to him.
But he's had a series of, to be charitable, bizarre incidents in the past 4 or 5 years.
But, there's another thing, and we keep getting into the idea. I'm sort of dealing with respect. You're dealing with judicial, and I think there's an element of truth in both ways. But one of the things about these debates that are going through, about 2 years ago, and this is sort of disturbing about the politics of things. A couple years ago, a woman named Tawana Brawley was raped, claimed she was raped. Some of the same people who defended Tawana Brawley, talked about black womanhood and respect and that whole thing, are now 360 degrees other ways talking about taking Tyson's side, talking about some were saying that she's lying, and that bothers me.
Well, she's asking for it.
She's asking for it. But 2 years ago, the same people politically were saying that it's the system and the sister was being mistreated. And I'm saying that you're either dealing with the honor and respect of black womanhood or you're not. So I mean, and that's the politics.
Here's a point on that, though. You always knew Tawana Brawley's name. You always knew her name from Jump Street. I mean, there's this whole thing about you can't know this woman's name until later, and she says, well, it's fine if you know my name. And my point is, if William Kennedy Smith is charged with raping her, she is not portrayed as this God-fearing, wonderful girl. She's portrayed as a woman who wore a short dress into a man's hotel room at 2 o'clock in the morning, and if you don't know that that's the truth, then you don't understand how you're being manipulated.
We have to stay, because we can go on for a long. I think you're expecting consistency, and you're not exactly expecting justice, and we're going to have difficulty getting both of them. We'll take a break.
It didn't take long for Mike Tyson to go from the people's champion to the lost champion.
And by no means am I sinless, but it's something that's absurd.
Welcome to the best of our Sunday night conversations. I'm Dan Patrick. We started bringing you these athletes up close and personal back in 1986, and our subjects have ranged from Nicholas to Palmer, Bird to Magic, Ali to Tyson. Over 300 conversations in all, over 20,000 minutes of tape to sift through, searching for what we felt were the most informative and insightful responses. Our goal is to bring you the timely interview, which brings us to our first conversation. We have done 5 lengthy interviews with Mike Tyson, and each has revealed a different side to the man. In 1986, Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion ever with this knockout of Trevor Berbick. His career hit an all-time high with this 91-second devastation of Michael Spinks. He seemed invincible, on top of the world. But Tyson's downfall accelerated out of the ring, starting with his marriage to Robin Givens. There were the late-night brawls on the streets of New York City, a car accident that was rumored a suicide, and what may be his final downfall on February 10th. An Indiana jury returned a guilty verdict on rape charges. But the saga of Mike Tyson began in the mean streets of Brownsville, New York. His teenage years were spent in the serenity of the Catskills. In his 25 years, Mike Tyson has lived on both sides of the track. In October of 1991, just after the grand jury indicted Tyson, Charlie Steiner sat down with Tyson and his promoter, Don King. In an interview that lasted nearly 2 hours, Tyson told Charlie about his influences in his life.
What used to bother me when I was younger, people used to take things from me. I used to wear glasses, and this guy, I don't believe he took the milk, and you always had milk when he took the milk, and he took my glasses. And I wanted to get my glasses, but I was scared to fight the guy for some reason, because he talked tough. But something that he did, it was so cruel, and I was devastated. But he took my glasses, folded them up. It was a big truck, I think it was a lunch truck. He took the gas tank, opened, and put my glasses in the gas. Dropped them in the way, he pumped the gas, and put them down there, turned back, and I said, no way I would get my glasses. And at that time, I couldn't believe someone could be that cruel to do that. I just couldn't believe they did that. I didn't even cry, I was just shocked that he did that. Because normally somebody would play with your stuff and just give it to you and then kick you in the butt when you turn around and get out of here. But he did that. I knew I wasn't going to get my glasses back. And I had to go home and had to get it from my mother.
And were you and your mom real tight?
Yeah, we were pretty good friends. We became friends in our later years.
But when you were running around being a bad guy, what was it like at home with you and your mom? Was that a hard time?
She was embarrassed because my mother was an absolute good woman. She was just that's her nature, a good woman. She was good. She didn't believe. She never stole a loaf of bread in her life, and she just was upset when I come in with money, new clothes, and she knew no one gave me clothes. I make up excuses. This happened, and just one day I gave her a bunch of money and said, "Oh, Mom, don't even ask me what I got from you. Just take it and buy something." But, she was so hurt that I would go that way. She was just embarrassed. She was embarrassed I was that way.
Thank you. Read something in the paper this morning which kind of struck me based on all of the conversations you and I have had over the years. And you're quoted saying, things are going to have to change. I just can't be the basic, typical guy, I mean, saying hi to people. I guess I'm going to have to start saying, no, you can't hang out with me, you can't get autographs. How difficult a transition has it, or is it for you, to withdraw and have to take a step back?
It's something that has to occur. It's going to have to happen because majority of people, you know, I mean, they take advantage of the fact that that's my aura of just a basic guy. And, you know, I mean, it's hard for me to change because that's what I always wanted to be. I was a normal guy, but I just can't allow people to take cheap shots, you know what I mean, trying to assassinate my character, lie. And by no means am I sinless. But it's just, some things are just absurd. Some of the things you hear, and it's just ludicrous, perverted, and it's just sometimes you can't even believe it.
You once told me it really wasn't hard being famous, because at that point in your life, things were going really, really well. Now, are you finding the difficulty of fame?
Yeah, you know, it's very, funny that we said it because I used to think about people. I said, why do you got a lot of guys and stuff around them? Why do certain people have, you know, I mean, bodyguard? I never could understand because I never thought that anyone wanted to hurt them or do anything to them because I thought people just respect them and love them too much. But, you know, is the reason for that, you know, and they used to always tell me, why are you hanging out alone? What are you doing here alone? I said, I'm just hanging out. I just came to see you.
Are there times you want to just kind of trade it all in and just be old Mike again? Is it still worth it?
No, I don't think because I am all Mike. It's just that I am who I am because I didn't enjoy being that way. I didn't enjoy being the way people harass, the way people disrespect you, didn't show any respect for you. They only respect money and power and influence, and they didn't respect the majority of the people again. I'm not saying everybody just didn't respect the average guy that just wanted to be happy and have, you know, be friends with everyone.
Tyson's life will soon change forever. He is scheduled for sentencing on March 26th in Judge Patricia Gifford's courtroom in Indianapolis. And for the first time since he was incarcerated at the age of 12, Tyson will be all alone. No Customato, no Robin Givens, and no Don King by his side.